Howdy guys, making us another sleepless night video here. Decided I'm going to do one real quick on how to do my snares. Get this set up here. This is some wire rope I picked up at Atwood's. I've cut it into sections about 3 feet long, give or take. That seems to be adequate for the size of loop you're going to need to make. When you go to the hobby store or Lowe's or wherever you can get it, this is, I'm not even sure what the diameter of the tube is. What I did when I found it is I took my wire rope that I bought and I put both ends together, and I made sure that both ends would fit tight into the tubing, like so. That's how I decided what size tube I was going to use. So after you do that, you can take a Dremel tool, a little saw and miter I use here, and I'll cut the tubing into little sections. Roughly the width of my crimpers here. So you can see that's the size of the tube I cut. And I cut up, you nearly need 2 for each snare you're going to make. This was 15 feet of snare wire. Makes 3 feet a piece. I get basically 5 out of 15 feet. So once you take one of your sections, take an everyday standard penny and drill a couple holes in it, which I have drilled mine like so. If you're using the good old pennies, they got the Lincoln Memorial on the back, I hit just on either side of the Lincoln Memorial is where I drilled them at. After you get there, you're going to just take a pair of pliers, channel locks, whatever you've got. I've got a pair of vice grips and a crescent wrench here, and just get the penny about in the middle. Try and line up with the holes. You want it to be roughly straight across those holes. Get locked on right where you want, and then just give it a good bend. There's no real long angle that matters to me. About that much is how much I bend it. If it's a little bit more or a little bit less than that, it's not really going to matter. So first thing you're going to do is take one of your tubes, slide it over the end of your wire rope. Now if you got loose ends or burrs on this, it's going to make it harder to put it together. Now this is going to, the only way I know to tell people to do this is you're going to want the angle of your penny to follow the angle of a circle. So you're going to want it, when you actually make your loop and put it together, you want your penny to lend to the inside of the circle, not backwards against the circle. That's going to be important later. So that is wrong. That is going to be correct. So I like to go up through my penny for my, I'm going to call it my standing end wire. And like I said, once you've cut this, it can be a little bit of a pain in the ass. You want it, the hole that you drilled, you obviously want the wire to go through it, but you don't want it super loose. It needs to be able to fit through it, but again, you don't want it to where the wire is going to be extremely loose in the inside that hole. Just fit is perfect. trying to do in here? It's not cooperating. There. After you get it just through there, we're going to bend it over. Now this is kind of important for functionality. Once you bend it over and you get your bushing, or whatever you want to call it, your crimp spot in there, you want to twist the wire to where that is going to naturally lay in there. You don't want it twisted over. I mean, you want a true loop. If you keep getting it where it twists over and twists over and twists over on itself, it's gonna make your snare not want to work properly. So as you build your crimp loop here, which you can pull it down pretty tight, just keep working it and working it until you get it about there. But you'll notice that once it's there, when I pull my loop up through here, I don't want it to try and work backwards, and that's why I did that. See, now it's naturally wanting to as it makes a loop go backwards. So I'm going to pull that all back apart and I'm going to flip it over again. Ultimately, I guess the best way to do this is just work your penny until you've got it where it'll go down through there and it'll naturally lay in a position where the bend of the penny lends to the operation, not fights it. Now if you get burrs on your wire rope, my advice is cut them off as you go, because when you jab yourself with them things, they hurt. You are cutting these little baby wire ropes, close your eyes. I actually had to go to the hospital at one point and have one of them things dug out of my eye because I wasn't smart enough to look away. So there's a little safety tip. So we're going to try this again. Once you get a good kink in the rope, it's tough to get it out, so try not to put a kink in the wire rope until you're sure you've got your penny built exactly where you want it. If you're concerned for some reason about this coming apart after you crimp it, which there's really no need to be, but if you happen to be, you can always, after you crimp it, or before you crimp it even, run a bead of solder in there. Now just heat it up with a torch and solder it. I can tell you there's no need to do that. If you crimp these properly, it will just, I mean, they're hard, they're tough. So after you get that in there, get a good set of crimpers that's going to crimp that. We're going to put a crimp on our jacket here. I mean, don't be afraid to crimp it. Good. You might even turn it over and crimp it again the other way so you really get a good bite on your wire there, so we're not worried about it coming apart. Now, like I said, when you make your loop, the penny should lend to making a loop, not fight the loop. And how you'll know that that's going to work, and again, you may have to trim off some of the burr edges to get it through your penny. That's okay. You want a good smooth run up your penny. You don't want the cable to flop in and out of this penny or around that hole. It's not going to work very good. But as you can see, the way this is, as the loop will close around whatever I'm doing, when you put back pressure on it, that penny will put it in a bind. And like I said, as I pull that tight, whap. And I can tell you, that when you go to pull it apart, if you pull on the wire and it puts it in a bind, that's working properly. If you're putting it where it's not getting it in a bind and it'll just close, if you've got it the other way, you've got it backwards, and it shouldn't have a hard time figuring that out. I like to put a loop, and I do it the same way on the top of my snares, and I'll just put another piece of bushing in there, or pipe, or whatever you want to call it. Flip my wire back over. You don't need a big loop at the top, just something that you can tie off to real easy. It's roughly barely big enough to get my pinky in. Do the same thing with my crimpers. Crimp that over, flip it over, crimp it the other way. I go to the regular crimp, and I'll crimp it yet again. Like I said, if you're concerned with that coming apart, go ahead and run some solder down in there, but I really think that's adequate. Some little 3 or 4 pound critter isn't going to pull it apart. And there you got a plenty adequate size snare. You can put a kink here, a little bit of a kink in that to if you need to want it to hold a little smaller, you can just put a little bend, which I don't pre-bend mine, but you can put a little bend right there, and that penny will lay there. Mr. Critter walks into your snare, trips it, whap, they're had. And then when they try to get out, as they pull back against it, it'll just make it tighter. And then they struggle and it binds down a little further. The only way to get it off is to just put a little pressure again in the back side of that penny and break the snare loose. But quick video on making a snare. I'm going to sit here and make up a couple more for somebody. I don't know whose kit will go in. Appreciate you watching. If you like my ideas, go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to get we're going to get these snares out in the real world and get some, set them up with some saplings and stuff so everybody can see how they really work. I'm not going to try and catch a critter because it's against the law in this state, and I don't see a reason in catching a defenseless critter for no reason. They work. It works just like any other snare. So there's plenty of videos on YouTube you can see a snare working. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching and have a good day.